We're here this afternoon at the AC by Marriott Hotel. I'm joined by Jean-Paul Giraud, who is the head chef both for the hotel and for Hazel restaurant. Jean-Paul, tell me a bit about the menu at the moment. What's going on at Hazel right now?
Well, we're launching our new autumn-winter menu tomorrow, in fact, and we've based it on a little bit of Scottish and a little bit of Spanish because the AC was originally the concept was a Spanish concept, so that's the route we've gone down. We try our very best to use as much of the amazing Scottish produce that you can buy. So we're using Orkney scallops, we're using Stornoway black pudding, we're using chickens and stuff from Ayrshire. So we try and keep it as local as we possibly can. There are one or two bits in there which you can't necessarily get in Glasgow because we want to bring a kind of Spanish feel to it as well. But even the Spanish stuff we're bringing in, we're importing straight from Spain into us here at the hotel. So we're quite excited about it. It's very different to the summer menu, obviously. So we've got a few more warmer starters rather than in the summer we like to do kind of colder starters. And we had a couple of salads and stuff included in our summer menu, whereas in the winter menu we have like a grilled tuna salad, but it's a warm salad as a starter. And what I've tried to do is create something for everyone, which is, as you know, it's practically impossible. But we try, and like even with our vegetarian and vegan dishes, we try and make them exciting, so it's not, that doesn't come over as an afterthought. We want to put nice flavors in there. We have a heritage carrot tartan for the main course, which we're using a vegan kind of vegan goat's cheese style cheese with it, and then roasted beetroots and like a beetroot swipe with it. And I was unsure when I first started playing around with it, but I'm using like maple for to put the glaze rather than so that it isn't too sweet, and then putting a little thyme through it. So I'm quite excited about that one because everybody that's tried it, they love it. So we're also working with Gilmore's Butchers and trying to make sure that we get some really good Scottish beef for our grill section. And we're adding onto this one, we're adding Shetland's monkfish, like a whole monkfish, grilled monkfish on there. And we're also adding some Ayrshire pork, like a pork cutlet, like a big chunky pork cutlet. So like just a different option rather than just steak on the grill, that we're bringing a little bit different. But we're putting accents of like chorizos and smoked paprikas and trying to bring a little bit of Spain in there. But my biggest priority to it is, we're a hotel in Glasgow. We want to be promoting Scottish food. And I know that as a French Welshman, that's kind of weird, but I've lived.
Yeah, I mean, you've been out here a long time, Jean Paul. You know your way around Scottish produce as well as anyone, right?
Yeah, I've literally spent 80% of my chefing career in Glasgow, so starting here. And I don't think people realize how much amazing products in Scotland. And from the cheeses to the fish and the seafood to the meat. Now you've got suppliers on the East Coast doing great salamis and chorizos from Scottish produce, which is amazing, right? And every year there's somebody else bringing new stuff to it. And whereas before you'd have to import stuff in or try and bring stuff in, Scotland have really taken the bull by the horns. The same with the alcohol. They've done, you get Scottish rums and Scottish gins and everything now. It's the same here. Like we've got companies that are doing little touches for the garnishes, which 5 years ago you would have had to import from France, and now we're making it in Scotland using Scottish produce. So it's amazing. I'm really proud of using Scottish produce. It's sometimes really hard, and the people here will tell you that because I'm kind of classically French trained, and my father is French, so it's really hard sometimes for me not to, when I'm typing up the menus, not to put the French words in there and the cooking methods, but the team have been here going, Jeff, that sounds a bit French. So we are conscious that we are trying to promote Scotland, and when people, obviously Marriott as a brand brings people from all over the world, and especially from the States. So we want them to have a taste of Scotland. We've got like a starter which is almost is a venison bourguignon, so there's a little bit of French in there, but we mixed it with a little bit of haggis, and it's just a little open Scotch pie shell, and then we're doing a little apple compote on top of that, and then some crispy potato. I would call them pom pie, but they're like little potato crisps on the top of it, and it's just a nice warm starter. So it's a nice warm welcome to Glasgow. It's a kind of slightly upmarket Scotch pie, if you want, So
there's a nod to your dad in the menu as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's on the lunch menu. We have a sandwich called the Petit Louis sandwich, and that's a nod to my father, because it's the product from the regions that he comes from in France, and my father's father was Francois Louis. My father is Pierre Louis, and I'm Jean-Paul Robert Louis. So Petit Louis was always the what they would call my father when he was young, because he was like, they'd use the middle names more than anything else. And I thought it'd be quite a nice thing. It's basically a glorified ham and cheese focaccia sandwich, but it's we've put a little bit of French mustard in there. It's got a little bit of rocket in there. We're using Gruyere in there, so it's a kind of slightly elevated nod of the head to who taught me how to cook. And I think you always have to have a little bit of your heritage into what you do, because that's where your identity comes from. Otherwise, we'd all be doing exactly the same thing. And I know that there are trends and styles like that, but I always think, as do the team in the hotel, that we have to put our individual little touches in there, so that when people come in, they know it's not just an afterthought. We're putting a bit of heart and soul into the whole process of it.
Hotel kitchens in Glasgow, that's where a lot of chefs who went on to kind of define what Glasgow food and drink became. That's where it all started, in some of the kitchens and places like Grand Central and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the old Malmaison in Glasgow Central, yeah.
But are you conscious of that kind of role that hotel kitchens have had as a starting point for lots of people on their journey?
Yeah, I mean, I know of it and I understand it. My consciousness here is that we try to promote the restaurant as, I don't think we do it like what a current modern hotel kitchen would be. We try to do modern twists and nice flavors, nice presentation, nice crockery. Of course, they were, if you back in the 80s and 70s, and even in some of the early 90s, if you wanted a great meal, you'd go to a hotel, because there was a lot less restaurants then. I mean, you could probably do all of Glasgow's restaurants in a month. back when I first came to Glasgow, there was a lot of cafes and stuff like that, but actual proper restaurants, there wasn't that many. Now you've got so much choice everywhere else. It's a different ballgame. But what we want to do is people in Glasgow to come in and try and experience. We're trying to promote as much of Scotland as possible, but we're putting a few interesting flavors in there as well, and not that many French ones. But we are trying to bring there was an interest in Spanish food which kicked off in Glasgow probably about 10 years ago, and as a branch of the Marriott that is Spanish, we put a little bit of that in there as well. But the biggest thing for us is trying to promote Glasgow and Scotland, and that's what we try to do with the food that we're buying in. Now, it doesn't have to be Scottish. We don't have to do mince and potatoes to create a Scottish meal, because that's the thing, that people need to broaden their horizon at what amazing things are out there now. And there's loads of independent people working really hard to bring a Scottish brand out there, and now they're using the bigger companies to get their products out there. And I try to do my best to, if there's a Scottish product that's worth using, we'll try and bring it into the menu, and we'll get the history behind it, and we'll speak to the waiting staff and tell a little bit of where it all comes from. It's the same with Gilmore's. They were family butchers. I've used Gilmore's when I was at the Spanish Butcher, when I was at Hutchison's, even when I was at the Virgin Hotel. I use Gilmore's because you're guaranteed a product, and great beef products. So if there's, and then there's East Coast curing, I've used some of that as well, and we're looking at a project right now on doing a slightly later night when the restaurant shuts, that you can come in and have charcuterie and cheeses and stuff here. And what I've done with that is, again, I've done a Scottish side to it and a Spanish side to it. So you're getting a little, and I think people will be really pleasantly surprised with how good the Scottish stuff is, because in the past, you would get product here, but it was average at best. Some of this stuff now is really competing there, and I think when you go to the food shows in Glasgow, and even if you go down to London, you see the Scottish produce is really carrying it, and that's what we want to promote. So,
you've cooked internationally, but you're still here. You're still in Glasgow. You still call this city home. What are the things that you like best about Glasgow that has brought you here, and you call this home with your family?
Well, my wife and my kids, for a start. I left Glasgow and went to work in Barbados for 10 years. And I left Glasgow and met a Glasgow girl in Barbados. And,
I did not know that.
And then that's what brought me back to Barbados, to Glasgow from Barbados. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing ever.